Hi, I'm Paul Marcel. So we're getting back to the Vanity series. I took a little diversion there with doing the Dovetail series, but I thought that was kind of a good way for me to get dovetail drawers put together, but also hopefully you'll find something interesting in that series. So what we're going to do today, we're going to get the guides set up and get all these ready to go so that we can get moving on doing the application of the sculpted front. So I just spent a little bit of time fitting all these drawers, so I took them and I planed all the tops and bottoms, planed the bottoms to get rid of all the machine marks that might have been on there so they run really smoothly, and then of course cleaning up the tops and getting them to the right thickness. I had made all these taller than they needed to be for their opening so that I could get these down to being a really nice tight fit. Now when you're doing these, you go and you round these little backs here to make it easier to put in, because again, what I have is drawer runners are up a little bit higher than the rail. So this makes it a little easier to put in. And then of course I rounded these pretty nicely so that there wouldn't be any sharp edges on it. Took care of rounding all the other parts that needed it. Now if you're doing drawers like this, because there's an applied front, don't round this edge here or this edge down here, because you're going to be applying a front to it. In fact, don't even do these outside edges if you're tempted to do so, because you're going to want that to be a very clean edge that glues up. So the next step of this is to apply the drawer guides and then also some drawer stops. Now right now I've started putting some finish on these drawers, so they're starting to look a little bit nicer, although I need to sand it down and go for the final coat. But these drawers here, the problem is without a guide, you can see that they're just going to slide side to side. And also, of course, they can rack when they go in. So it's actually sometimes very difficult. If you get it to start to rack, it'll just bind up on you. Now, with the guides that are going to be on the inside, all the guide is I took some scraps of mahogany that are already thin enough to fit underneath this drawer. So there's a little bit of a clearance underneath where the panel will go. So these can be fixed to our runners in such a way that when this slides back, it's being guided exactly. There's not going to be any chance for it to bind. It can't do any motion. So that's what we're going to be placing. Each one of these strips is basically going to be for one drawer when I cut it in half, because I don't need it to be that long. What we're also going to want, though, is we need something to stop the drawer. Right now, I could continue to push this in. It would go all the way in. So what I did is I cut some little chicklets. These are just some chicklets of, again, some of the scrap mahogany. And what we're going to do, these are going to be placed here on the inside. So it's just going to be attached right there in such a place that when you push this drawer in, it's going to butt up against this and stop. Now it has two functions. The one function is, of course, preventing this from going too far, so it's going to help set the depth of the drawer so that this thing can stop dead flush to the front, which is what we want when we do the application of the front. But also we're going to be pushing this all the way to the outside. So in a way it's going to affix the position of this drawer so that it can't slide side to side. Now normally that means it could be a little bit on the tight side when you insert it or remove it or even just plain use it. But you'll see that we're going to do some modifications to the drawer after we do the guides and the stops. That's going to fix all that and make it really nice to use. Now the way I'm going to be attaching these is I'm actually just going to use a nail gun. I'm going to put first the chicklets in, and then afterwards what I'm going to do is, while I have the drawer open without the bottom on it, I'll slide one of these mahogany strips up on each side all the way up until it abuts against this chicklet that's used for the drawer stop, and then I'll fire one nail into the front. And then I'm going to take this drawer out, put the plywood base into it so that we can make sure that it doesn't change any dimensions after you put the ply in. Slide it back in until it hits these stops. And then from the back, I can rotate this until it's touching the drawer. So then at that point I can shoot a couple nails back here to lock it into place. The one thing I wanted to mention about these chicklets is that the grain in this chiclet is going vertically like this. So the way I'm going to want to put it in here is I want the grain to go side to side. The reason for that is I want it so that when the drawer hits it, that it's pushing the nails, it's pushing against the nails, so it's not going to split. If I were to do it with the grain going front to back and I put the nail in, then each time it gets hit, it's almost like it's going to be prying the grain open. So it could actually break open this little chiclet. So it's a lot easier to just put the two nails in the front when you have it sideways. And it'll also tend to wear better because the side is going to be the end grain. It's a heck of a lot more description than it is to actually just plain do it. So I'm going to go ahead and do this and you can watch. So at this point, you can see the guide is in there. There's the guide. So after I shot it with some nails over here just to hold it while the drawer was in place, then I took the drawer out and just shot a few more so that this thing doesn't wiggle. And then, of course, these are in place up in the front. And I added a few extra shots onto there just to make sure, since I only put two to sort of lock it into place. Now, the thing is the drawer, it's really tight on here because, of course, I had it right up to the edge. So sliding it in and out, I mean, this isn't waxed yet, but still, sliding it in and out is a little bit on the tricky side. So what we're going to do now is, now that that's been sized perfectly, this part here, up near the front, is where the little square is located, the stop. And that presses right up against the side. So I'm going to take some swipes from about here over with the plane on both sides. So what that's going to mean is that even though this was made snug up to this edge, I'm allowing for a little bit of extra space. So it'll make it easier to slide in and out. But then up here, so just when you push that drawer in and you got that last inch is going to snug up against these stop blocks, and it's going to center it and place it just perfectly. Now this is a trick I picked up from Charles Neal, and it's fantastic. If you happen to be a member of his guild, his very first guild build was a corner cabinet. If you were to look at its 12th episode, just that right there is a whole lesson in drawers. So now that I planed away a little bit on the insides, I also happen to have had a little bit of a high spot on here, so I took care of that. I didn't notice when I was first doing it. But this hasn't been waxed yet either. And then when you push it all the way in, I mean, it's right where I want it for that front.